really, I think it's just treat every kid like you would want to treat your own. And all of their kids come to the practice. So ultimately, I think they can translate that quite well. I think the other thing that I really like my team to do is always want to keep on learning because our system is always evolving. Like whatever we started with, it has been 100 iterations since any of them have started.
What's the secret to happier patients, a more confident team, and technology that actually works for you in pediatric dentistry? In this episode, Dr. Jackie Wingate pulls back the curtain on her journey from fast-paced, high-volume dentistry to a much more intentional, low-volume practice built around kids and their families. And she shares what made her walk away from the traditional model and how she thoughtfully built a practice in the Philadelphia suburbs that prioritizes team, education, and minimally invasive care. We talked through the behind-the-scenes decisions that really shaped her practice, from smart technology choices and outsourcing to building a team that genuinely believes in the mission. Dr. Jackie also gets real about reducing the need for sedation and what she learned from working in both DSOs and private practices. And we talk about the tiny details that unexpectedly move the needle. I can't wait for you to hear one of her best marketing decisions ever. It might not be what you expected. So if you're a dentist or practice owner feeling burned out, or just wondering what a better version of pediatric dentistry could look like, this conversation is for you. So let's listen in and break down practical, real-world insights for building a pediatric practice that's rewarding for you and meaningful for the families you serve. Jackie, how's it going?
Great. I have this week off, so it's one to enjoy and relax and share some knowledge.
Nice. Awesome. So if you don't mind me asking, where are you located right now?
I'm currently in Palm Springs, California,
Oh,
with
wow.
my family on vacation, but I live in the Philadelphia suburbs.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
And that's where your practice is at?
Yes. So my practice is about 30 minutes west of Philly on what's considered like the main line, which is just a suburban area that you can take the train from Philadelphia west.
Gotcha. Interesting. So then let's start with a quick snapshot. What kind of practice are you running today and what makes it different in how it operates or serves patients?
So I run a PPO practice right now. It's PPO and fee-for-service office. It's definitely low volume, high quality patient care. So I think a lot of like what the practices in the surrounding area are, there are a lot of high volume, shorter visits, not necessarily lower quality. It's just a faster paced practice. And I kind of wanted to slow things down and really focus on quality of care and preventative education. I definitely don't do as much sedation. I spend a lot of time on behavior management, and I love using my Solea laser to help minimize how much sedation we're doing, which is a little bit different in pediatric care.
Interesting. Okay, so then you wanted to slow things down. Where was the pivotal moment where you're like, we're rushing, we're going too fast, I'm not liking this?
So I guess like my journey has kind of taken me through all the different avenues. So when I first started, we saw about 60 patients a day, but still 2-provider practice. And I felt like we like really spent time and could cover one another and maintain that quality of care because we had the flexibility of 2 providers. Then when I moved to Rochester, I went to work for a DSO for a while where I felt like hygiene was rushing. My schedule wasn't as full as it could be. So I felt like all of the pieces were not together there. And I definitely decided like I had 90 days with the DSO and was like, this is not for me. Then I worked for a private practice with a retiring dentist. And that was more, I guess it was still a PPO practice. We saw a lot of Blue Cross Blue Shield patients because in Rochester, New York, the biggest employer is the hospital system. So like it was a lot of physicians' kids. Then we had like a lot of teachers, and I felt like we could really reserve care there. But when I was moving back to Philadelphia, I knew kind of the practice model of these bigger DSOs, and a lot of them had condensed, so they're all owned by the same group. And I was like, I just think I want to work for myself and I don't want to follow that same mold and want to do my own thing.
So when you were at the DSO, there might have been a lot of things you didn't like, but what were some things where you're like, I like this, maybe I might modify this to my liking or my vibe? What were some of those systems?
To be honest, I didn't work in like a fantastically run DSO. Like the efficiency wasn't there, which I would love to see one of those practices. But I loved the drive of the hygienist. That's really, I actually ended up taking one of my hygienists with me from that DSO office because I was like, she likes to work. She likes her job. She knows what she's doing. I feel like that's probably the piece that I took most with me, like how they ran their hygiene model. And like the lead hygienist there was fantastic at her job.
If you can break down for me, how did they run their hygiene model?
So they actually had 2 hygienists and they had 3 columns of patients. And it was like whoever was done first would take over the next patient. So it was kind of just like a fluid schedule. It wasn't like, this is my patient, that's your patient. It was whoever's done first moves on, which I thought was a great model because, sometimes with kids, they'll be really cooperative and a cleaning can take 15 or 20 minutes, or they can have a really hard day and they need that extra full hour or whatever your appointment time is. And they were just very fluid with the schedule. They knew all the patients and could seamlessly go from one column to the other.
Interesting. That's different. I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Is that the type of model you're running right now?
Currently, no. I have 2 hygienists and 1 EFTA, so it's a little bit different just because we have the EFTA polishing, the hygienist scaling. So in every state, it's a little bit different. That was in New York where we didn't have EFTAs. So definitely had to modify the mode a bit. But in my current practice, each hygiene visit is an hour. New patients, prior patients, just because we find that like behaviorally, it's really hard to predict how much time you're going to need for a kid. But what I don't want to do is fall behind and feel like we're rushing because I feel like the patients can really feel that.
Big time. You mentioned something, behavior management, that you decided to hyper-focus on that more. Talk to me about that.
I guess as I became a mother, for me, it was like, if I wouldn't want to put my child under anesthesia or even oral conscious sedation, moderate or deep sedation for the same procedure, then I didn't want to be putting other people's kids under it. Like most of the kids that I see are able to understand that if this, then that when they need restorative care. So like 4 and up. If we do this, then you can get a prize. So I wanted to be able to have that time to explain what I'm going to do, show it to the kids, do it, and do it just the way I would want my own kids to be treated. So really, that's the way I still practice today. Like I'll do, and Solea allows us to do a lot of anesthesia-free restorative care, which I think for that young population from really 3 to 6, if you don't have to numb them, a lot of them are so cooperative because you're taking out that needle and that phobia of shots. I mean, I do a lot of restorative care on young children that otherwise I would have not thought it was possible because I didn't have the time or the training.
So your new patient visits then, how long are they?
They're an hour, but I feel like a lot of that visit is actually like assessing the patient's behavior and their ability to understand what's happening. Like, do they understand that I'm going to show this to them, then I'm going to use it on them? So like, even with the prophy angle, we'll show it to the kids on their fingernail and then be like, and now we're going to use it on your teeth. If we can get like the if this, then that, then I know that there's probably going to be pretty good success, especially if we can get a nitrous nose on them. So we'll show the kids even before their restorative visit, if they need care, we'll show them the nose, make sure that they're willing to accept it and give the parent that nose to take home to practice with it. Try it on, smell it, go into the kitchen, smell things with it on, pretend you're an elephant, make the noise. All these different things to try and desensitize the kids before they come into that restorative visit so they're prepared.
Interesting. Once you started doing that, you noticed a huge pivotal moment?
Oh, yeah. I feel like so many of the kids can do the treatment. Like the ask is not that big if you can do your job quickly. So in pediatric care, I would say like we need to be like experts at doing a restoration as fast, but as good as possible because you only want to do it once.
That's so good. Interesting. Okay. So then looking at where your practice is now, what key decisions helped shape its current identity or business model? So
I think like 2 things were super important in like my mindset going into the new office that was a startup in an area that I didn't know anyone, that I wanted to grow it really based on the quality of care that we were delivering. And I wanted to focus on that quality of care. So if there were things that other people could be doing, I wanted to outsource it to the experts. So like the claims management, I took that out of my hands. Like I am not a claims expert, nor do I want to focus my time on that. So I decided to send all of my claims management through a company called Dynamic Dental Solutions. And they basically, we create the claims, they batch and send them, and then they track them, which I thought was a great use of time. Because previously, I feel like I was always looking at all of that in my Canandaigua practice and my New York State practice. And now I feel like we have other people managing it. So I just get like the last final review, which has saved so much time. So basically, I wanted to really focus on the patient care and have all the experts do the other pieces. So I also found like a practice management software that I felt like so much of it was integrated because I didn't want to spend a ton of time like learning all these different systems. So I use CareStack and I love it because it does like, we can create the claims, we can do all the patient messaging, all the paperwork can go through that. So I feel like it like very much streamlined things. So I'm not paying like 100 bills. I do a lot of it through one avenue, which is CareStack. Actually, I could also do claims management through them, but they didn't have that service when I started. At some point, I may do that as well, but it's like when the system's not broken, I didn't want to fix it. So I still keep some of those plots separate, but really I wanted to have the system solidified so that more care could be spent on the things that I actually like really find joy from, which I do love the business of dentistry, but I want the experts to do the parts that they're good at. And I basically oversee the KPIs. And then I can really focus on that patient care and making sure that like the kids have appropriate medical referrals, that the kids have appropriate communication with other dental specialists, that really all of those kids are getting super good care.
What Jackie just said about outsourcing the stuff that drains you, that's not just claims and eligibility. It's also the tiny, constant supply decisions that quietly steal time and margin, because it's never just one big purchase. It's the daily drip, the, hey, we're low on paste, or why is that burst suddenly $40? Who ordered the wrong size again? Why did we pay shipping twice this week? So here's a simple operating move if you want your practice to feel calmer and more controlled. Pick one place that becomes your default for the stuff you reorder all the time. Gloves, disposables, small equipment, materials, and make it easy for your team to not overthink it. That's why I like Net32, because it's built for the real world. You can price compare quickly, reorder fast, and stop the 5 tabs open plus the random vendor roulette problem that makes supply ordering weirdly exhausting. If you want to go check it out, go to net32.com/dental marketer. That's net32.com/dental marketer. Or if you want, you can go in the show notes below and click on the first link in the show notes below, and it'll take you to the net32.com website. And just poke around like you're doing a quick supply audit for your practice. You'll see what I mean. So go to net32.com/dental marketer. All right, let's get back to Jackie. Gotcha. Okay, I like that. So then the software. Right. And outsourcing. So how do you know like whether you should be outsourcing or delegating this to a team member? Or do you think it's like, hey, no, you're better spent on, like, how do you know?
Well, so I think in today's like hiring conundrum, I'll call it, it's not that easy to find people that are in your area that also know like dental claims and billing. My front desk Katie, she had medical experience and veterinary experience. So those I thought gave her a great foundation. And I knew that I needed Katie to be doing like the in-office eligibility checks. She wouldn't have enough time in the day to do the claims management and the eligibility checks. Then I looked to hire somebody in the area and I just didn't feel like I found the right fit. And honestly, like with the turnover of the front desk, I was worried that if someone leaves, I need to have a system in place that can be okay with in-person employee leaving. So having that outsourced has just given that flexibility. If there is turnover of staff, I'm not like so stressed that no one knows how to do this thing.
That's true. Yeah. Turnover of staff. Interesting. Okay. So then right now, is there a system or a workflow in your practice that gives you clear operational advantage? Like something you believe more practices should adopt, but don't?
I do think that everybody should be outsourcing their claims. I'm not saying use the system that I use, but to have somebody in person doing that requires so much time. And some of these companies are really efficient. And even with like AI generated stuff now for eligibility checks, like I think in the next year, everybody should be using one of these AI generated systems. There's so many of them. We just interviewed for benefits checks and there's just so many ways to use the technology in today's day and age that will help make your front desk smoother and have less on their plate so they can really hone in on the like patient communication, scheduling, coordination, and the pieces that make such a huge impact to the patient.
Gotcha. Interesting. I like that a lot. Right now, you mentioned you're in Philadelphia, right?
Yes.
Okay. What's the move that helped you stand out, especially when competitors were offering similar services?
Ultimately, I think it's my team, to be honest. I hire people that love what they do, and you can just feel that. So like when you come into our office, you know that the girls want to see your kids and you know that they want to work with them. We're all on the same page. Everybody knows that we're there for your kids. We're there to help make you feel comfortable, help your kids feel comfortable, and make the process smooth. So I think if you really hire people that share the same vision, it just makes the day go well. And ultimately, everybody can feel that and enjoy it. I think our area where it's like a very quick paced office visit, us spending time made a huge difference. I think as long as you communicate well that your visit is an hour, everybody in this area was used to having 30-minute visits. So sometimes they thought they were leaving in 30 minutes. And we're like, are we done yet? Are we done yet? So we recognized that early on, like when we schedule the patient for a new patient exam, we have to inform that all of our visits, no matter whether they're restorative, cleaning, or a new patient appointment, are an hour because we're going to spend time with you. We want to make sure that you understand everything that we're going to review. We're going to review airways. We're going to review orthodontic needs. We're going to review any medical concerns that we may have. And we're going to review preventative measures for dentistry. And I think that really just making sure that we took like this whole approach to the child instead of just it's like teeth, teeth, teeth out. I think that really set our practice apart. And truthfully, I like love the airway part of dentistry. For me, that's something that I find a lot of joy in. And I've found that if we can identify those airway patients early, a lot of the kids don't need sedation. They really need to be able to breathe through their nose.
Mm-hmm.
And if they can't breathe through their nose, whatever treatment it is, whether it's oral conch sedation or IV sedation or general anesthesia, they're still going to struggle at the dentist post-sedation portion. So I think spending the time really integrating like whole health and how that can affect dental health and making sure that we have a team that can really work together well has been like definitely what's made us successful.
Yeah. Did you ever get any like pushback besides the initial part, either from the team or from the patients where they're like, you're taking a long time? Like I just came here for one thing and it's been an hour now.
No, I definitely do get it. But when we tie it all together at the end of a visit, a parent's like, no one's ever explained any of this to us. And they have that aha moment, like this was totally worth my time. And a lot of them will be like, I'm sorry I rushed you. Are all visits this length? And I'm like, yes, just set aside an hour. Because as your child grows and changes, there's going to be different things that we're going to be talking about. Like when they're little and they're not making proper speech sounds, we'll often make like speech recommendations just because I have kids that both had speech issues and different speech issues, phonological processing and articulation issues. And because we do tongue ties, we have a lot of good connections with local providers. So I'll just be like, have you ever noticed this? I'm definitely not an expert in that, but mom to mom, here are like some recommendations if you would like. We work with these teams and they're fantastic. So I do think that it's a change in mind shift. Parents have to understand that we're not just coming to get our teeth cleaned, we're coming to get our child's whole dental health evaluated. Everybody got on board for that. Then we typically don't have trouble. Or honestly, not every person wants that other information. And if they don't want it, I do think then they decide to go somewhere else and that's okay too.
Interesting. Okay. Do you send them home with anything? Like, for example, they're like, okay, I got the information. Let me go home, discuss it with my husband, wife. What do you send them home with?
It depends on what the patient is. A lot of the times we'll use like, if we're worried about airway, we'll use the Pediatric sleep questionnaire, which comes out of Michigan. And if they strike 9 or above on that, we'll actually send that with like a recommendation for an ENT visit. If it's something speech related, I'll often just text because in CareStack, you can text the patients. We'll text them a link to the provider and just be like, you could always call them for a consultation if you're interested. If it is a dental related problem, if it's something that's orthodontic related, we'll send them with a referral that includes radiographs and photos because we take intraoral photos for all of the patients. So I would say they leave with like an abundance of information, even to the point where sometimes it's overwhelming. But I always tell them, like, if you have questions, concerns, or you're like trying to explain this to your spouse and you really feel like you're not doing it justice, please reach back out because we're always happy to review and we have like pretty solid notes so we can just even copy paste what we said.
Gotcha. And so what's the follow-up process like or looks like whenever you're like, okay, been a couple of days that you're thinking about your kid and are they going to come in for treatment?
Most patients actually, before they leave, we have them schedule the dental part. The dental part, I feel like, is an easy one. We try not to ever let a patient leave without scheduling their next hygiene visit and a restorative care. Typically, our restorative care books about like 6 to 8 weeks out. And so we always inform them we're booking farther out. So we want to make sure that we reserve that spot for you. It's their time of day that works best. And then they'll just schedule that before they leave.
I like that. Yeah. I like that a lot. Especially like noticing like, man, you're busy kind of a thing, right? Like 6 to 8 weeks out.
Yeah. We try to keep it from 4 to 6, but like, especially around the holidays or when we know we have dedicated time off, it tends to book even farther.
Yeah. Do you notice in the year like a slower season or no?
For sure. Actually, generally, I would say September tends to be like a slow season, but this year it was not September, it was October, interestingly.
Yeah.
September, we felt like we were slammed and like we never had that lull when school started. But October, I would say early to mid October, we were definitely slower.
So then when it's slower, anything specific that you do to keep like the team active, but at the same time,
Sure.
get new patients?
So in terms of new patients, we're pretty consistently like 50 new patients a month. And then we'll see it peak definitely in July and August with 70 or 80 new patients. But I would say in terms of general recall systems, so like in October when we were slow, the girls called the recall list, which is patients that are overdue for cleanings. And then we also called all the outstanding treatment lists. So like being able to go into CareStack and just click list, and it has those two lists so easily accessible. I think it makes it so easy for us to do that.
Nice. Okay. That's really good. Now, you mentioned your team, and we'll kind of talk about that right now, but you say they all believe in the vision.
They do.
What's the vision?
Treat every child like your own. And we all have kids. So except for one. But Amanda has the great knowledge of treating kids like their own. She comes from a big family and has worked in an orthodontic office prior. So I feel like she was already sold on the vision too. But really, I think it's just treat everything like you would want to treat your own. And all of their kids come to the practice. So ultimately, I think they can translate that quite well to the patients, which is wonderful. I think the other thing that I really like my team to do is always want to keep on learning because our system is always evolving. Like whatever we started with, it has been 100 iterations since any of them have started. And my shortest employer has been with me for a year. The longest, Caitlin actually moved with me from New York. So Caitlin, my dental assistant, has lived with me for 10 years.
Yeah. So they've stuck by you.
They do. I think if they know that you're doing right by a child and they want to learn how to treat kids and be able to identify these airway issues and be able to make them be really good patients. I think like that's the coolest part in pediatric care is you can see a child transform from a really scared kid to this really confident patient, which is such a rewarding transition to see.
That's beautiful. So then when hiring, what's been your most effective filter for finding people who actually help the practice grow and not just fill a role?
I really hire based on personality. And I also like to get people that have experience, but maybe not have been in one place for too long. So I would say if I can get a hygienist right out of school, I feel like that's a great way to train someone. So my newest hygienist, Amanda, is wonderful. She came right out of school and was so willing to learn and such a quick learner. So I think finding someone that has a willingness to learn and really can connect with people, making sure that they can communicate well is super duper important.
Gotcha. So personality, how do you know if like they can communicate well or they're just like to talk?
It's a good question. I often hire from like personal recommendations too. So like through one of my patients' parents, that's how I found Amanda. So I think if you build your name in the community to be like this quality focused practice, that also spreads naturally. I think in terms of communicating, we have like a series of 10 questions. Some of it's personal, some of it about their past experiences, some of it's about dentistry. And I think trying to get a little bit from each of those buckets is important because then you can learn a little bit about the person. Like, why are they in dentistry, and then hear a little bit about their family, hear a little bit about their 5-year goals. I think if you can take a piece from a little bit of all of their life, then you can really figure out who, or if they don't love it either, because this has happened too, right? We've all hired the wrong person.
Yeah.
It's okay to let them part ways and know, like, this isn't working. I normally give everybody a 90-day trial period, and in 30 days, I can tell you yes or no.
Yeah, that's good. So then you mentioned the series of questions, 10 of them, right?
Yeah.
Like about 10.
Yeah.
Is there any one where you're excited to ask, or is there any of them that you're like, this is going to tell me a lot about you?
It's interesting. I think like at this point, I feel old. I'm turning 40 this year, and I feel like I definitely communicate totally different than the 20-year-olds do. And I'm like, wait, I don't get it. But I would say I do always ask them, like, what motivated you to work with kids? For me, like, I started working with kids. I was a camp counselor and I just loved my summers working with kids. I always found like they brought me joy. So I'll just ask. And if the answer is like, they don't know why they work with kids, like, I'm a little concerned because it's not an easy job for sure. And I think it's important that we know their why, like what made them want to work with children, or the part in dentistry too is an important question, I think. What brought you to dentistry? And I think if an employee has a personal connection to dentistry, I had a dentist that I loved, or I worked for so-and-so and their spouse was a dentist, or whatever it is, if they have a connection to dentistry, I think that gives somebody a much greater aptitude to like know what the field is like. You have to know dentistry to know whether you like it or not. And I think I went to like technical school and I thought it was appealing. It's also great, but I think then they need to find the passion behind that.
Yeah, I like that one. Like, what makes you want to work with children? To you, what have been some responses where you're like, that's not a good one? Besides, like, well, I don't know.
The short answers are really where I'm concerned. I'd rather they go onto a story and tell me some personal story. That's a good question. To be honest, no one's really failed an interview with me. And to me, ultimately, it's like a gut feeling when I interview somebody. And I think it's important that I connect with them too, because their answers might be perfect, but if I don't feel like our personalities match well, then that's honestly more concerning than whatever they say. A lot of people are scripted today, and ChatGPT can create a great script for all of these questions.
Yeah. And then they memorize it and then they try to, yeah, that's 1,000% true. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So then these are like the hiring tactics. Now, is there anything that you've seen, Jackie, where you've heard people say, hey, this is how you should be hiring. This is how you should be firing. This is how all these things. But in your opinion, you're like, that's not good advice. I don't agree with that when it comes to anything team related.
I think ultimately, like for me, I would say my one piece of advice with that is like, I look at finances as an open conversation. So typically, if somebody asks for a certain dollar amount, I'll just ask, why are you looking for that dollar amount? And I think this came from one of my past partners that I worked with. I would rather start someone at a lower dollar amount and say, like, if you're fully trained in 4 weeks, I'll raise you. And if you're exceeding my expectations, 4 weeks after that, I'll raise you again. Like, I think it's important that everybody understand how much money it takes to run a practice. So when I break down pay for someone and a hygienist is asking for $65 an hour, previously, especially when I was taking Delta Dental, I was like, do you know how much a cleaning gets paid in a practice like ours? Honestly, I don't think I ever had someone that said, yes, I know how much a cleaning is actually paying the practice. But I would say it's $100. And then you think of all the materials that we're using during that cleaning. And then you think of like the software, the computer systems, the light, the power, and go on, like extrapolate that over time. And I would just be like, if I was really paying you that amount, I would make negative money. And ultimately, this is a business, but it's also patient care. So I need us all to understand that we're working for the same goal, which is to make the business be successful so everything can grow together. So I often will try and have the employees start at a lower rate than what they're asking for, but through explaining quality and overhead and educate them about it. And then I want to see them grow. Like at the end of the day, I'm going to try and keep things tight so that I can pay it forward to the employees that work hard and do well. But I need them to understand that like I have to start everyone at a reasonable rate. So I would say making sure that it's a person that is not like steadfast on, I need this dollar amount for this reason, for that reason. I need them to be part of the team and understand how that team can work. But in the same sense, they need to understand the business of dentistry to do that.
Yeah, that's really smart. That's a good way to also determine like, will they be flexible to work with the team? Or are they like, no, I need to get paid this much? And then you can just be like, you're not hired then.
And I have had those conversations where it doesn't work out past that, or even where you try and break that down and somebody's not willing to flex. And I understand that too. For someone that's worked hard, I've never not given them a raise as quickly as they had hoped for. If they are willing to learn, they're worth what they're asking for, but you need them to be trained and understand your systems first.
Okay, I like that. So then let's just say it is 65. How much lower would you start them?
Gosh, that's a hard one. Let me work backwards. I look at the median rate in the area, like I'll Google search median rate for dental hygienists, pediatric dentistry, Philadelphia area. And I think when I was hiring, I think it said 47. And I normally will start at what I figure like is that rate. So I look at that median rate, start at that, and then work up to whatever they're asking for. they're typically not asking you 65, really. It's really high in this area. That's like a temp position. I would say 55 is more like what they're asking for. And I would start them around 47, but you got to bump them up pretty quickly. You have to understand that like you're not giving raises every year in that case, because they're not going to stay with you. You have to make sure that you're like within the market average, I would say. And then if you can give them other benefits, so like we have a 401k, big girls have 6 paid federal holidays. Like I try to make sure that I'm giving them other bonuses along the way. They get Christmas bonuses so that they really feel valued and work hard and feel that love and appreciation. But all of my girls ask for reasonable raises at this point because they've been with me long term and they understand they're going to keep growing too.
Yeah. And so do you normally give them like a raise, or are you just more like...
I do.
Okay.
I do. Especially when they're with you long term. It's like, how do you not? Like, obviously, with inflation costs, like everything inflates every year, right? Though dental insurances are not paying us more. Like my motto has been like to maintain the profit in our world. I've just decreased the number of insurances that we're in network with as we've grown so that we can keep elevating quality of care, investing in technology, paying our staff more. And I try to explain that even to patients. I'm like, look, it's not that we don't want to take the insurance. It's that I can't afford to take the insurance and deliver the quality of care that I want to give.
Eventually in the future, do you plan to go completely fee for service?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think it's important that if people have benefits, that they're able to use them. But it's just making sure that dentists are reimbursed at a rate that is sustainable for business.
No, that's good. That's good. Interesting. Okay, so then you're giving everybody a raise when they pretty much, and then the bonuses. Do you have like an incentive as far as like an incentivized for the
like
bonuses?
Production? No, I used to do that. I found that got really competitive between employees.
Really?
I did it in my Rochester practice. I did it for a few years. If I was going to do that again, it would be team goals versus individual goals. So if the hygiene department produces X amount, and then like the hard part is how do you quantify that for assistants?
Yeah.
And that's where I always struggled.
How did you do it with assistants?
They were in my production. So it was like doctors production, hygiene production, and then front desk had numbers. So they had like X number of new patients scheduled, X number of recall percentage. So it was like 98% of the kids were scheduled for their recall.
Interesting. Okay. You mentioned your Rochester practice?
Yes. I practiced up in the Finger Lakes regions for 7 years and was part owner in that practice with an orthodontist. And then when I left, sold that, and actually it was sold to other pediatric dentists, and then went into the startup in the Philadelphia suburbs.
Could I ask, why did you leave?
So my husband was in Rochester. He was a medical resident, and he was moving for his career to the Philadelphia suburbs to practice plastic surgery with his father. So it was like a really hard decision to leave Rochester. We loved the area. I loved that practice. I had an amazing team up there. And that was like such a difficult decision for us to make. And we actually made it the March of COVID.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
So, but then I ended up having all of that time when we were off in COVID to plan my startup. So it was definitely a big decision. I don't have any regrets in it because that practice is still doing great. And I like still get to follow up with some of the girls that I worked with. But I've definitely I would say explored all ends in pediatric dentistry. I've been an associate. I worked at a DSO. I ran my own practice with a partner. And now this is my startup and hopefully my final legal training.
No, interesting. So then why did you decide to do a startup instead of just want to do a partnership?
When we were relocating, I reached out to all of the neighboring practices. It was like, hey, I'm a pediatric dentist. I'd be looking to partner or purchase. And I reached out to, I would say, all of the surrounding practices that were within like a 15-mile radius, I would say. Because my practice in the Finger Lakes region was about a 45-minute drive. I knew I wanted to commute less than that. So within that 15-mile radius, I reached out to a bunch of different people. I talked to attendings from residency, who I knew were grounded and rooted in this area. And everybody kind of was like, I don't think any of them are willing to part with their practices at this point. And honestly, I got zero response, not even a call back for a year and a half. So then I was like, all right, I just have to go out and do my own thing. And my dad is a retired orthodontist. And my dad was like, it'll be so much easier to acquire someone's practice. And I said, Dad, I hear you. I would love to do that, but the cards are not working yet for that hand. So I need to fold and have a new hand.
Interesting. Okay. And so you opened your startup practice exactly where you wanted, or?
Yep. So I actually did a demographics report and they gave me like 5 different areas. But interestingly, I think demographic reports don't know the area as well as people that live in the area. Like I think they give you some insight that is wonderful, but ultimately someone on the ground gives you more information.
Mhm.
So even talking to one of the neighboring practices, it's still my closest practice. And I have to like give Ben McKee biggest praise because he has been such a wonderful neighbor. He was like, this area could support another new pediatric dentist 100%. And I was like, you're sure? I really don't want to step on anyone's toes. And he's like, I am positive. I'm so booked out. I'm so saturated. Like I would just do it somewhere around here. So he was fantastic and really gave me like the push that I needed to be like, okay, I really didn't want to step on anyone's toes. I just want to make sure this is okay.
Would you recommend that? So for example, if you're like, I found a beautiful location, but there's another pediatric practice and stuff, sometimes it's like, hey, just open up. Don't even talk to anybody. Just open up and then they'll deal with it. Or do you recommend like, yeah, reach out to them and you kind of run the risk of them being like, no, don't come? Or what do you think?
Yeah, I 100% would not have done it differently. I think reaching out to those neighboring providers is the right way to do it. In pediatric dentistry, even though we all might be somewhat of a competitor, I think there's enough children out there. And I also think we all do things a little bit differently. So in Rochester, I needed to rely on those neighboring providers for different things. Like someone did IV sedation, someone did hospital anesthesia, someone did oral conscious sedation. And I still feel like that. We all have like our own thing to bring to the table. So I just think like it's better to have that camaraderie with a neighbor and start off on the right foot and like get their blessing. I feel like most of us are pretty friendly people. I'm huge.
Yeah.
But I do think saying, hey, here's what I'm thinking is always like such a nice way to enter a new community.
Yeah, it is super good. But I feel like at times I feel a little risky, but I would totally do it. You giving me the advice, I would say like, what do we got to lose, right? Kind of a thing.
I mean, even if they say no, are you going to change your business plan? Probably not.
That's true. That's true.
So I think ultimately, like if you know you're already doing it, I just think it's like really a nice hello.
That is true. Yeah, I like that a lot. So then when it comes to, because you mentioned like in your Rochester, how you had to market and depend on specific other providers for new patient flow, which marketing move surprised you the most in terms of ROI or effectiveness?
This is actually a really funny one. My partner who I worked with in Rochester, he was like, spend money on the sign, Jackie. And I was like, you're serious? Like, how much money are we talking? He was like, get the biggest sign you can get. And I was like, no way. And he was like, yeah, make your logo cute, get the biggest sign you can get. And it needs to be like on a main street. He did always say like, if you could be across from a Wegmans or a grocery store, like fantastic. So I wasn't able to find the location next to a grocery store that I could purchase. So the main thing is I wanted to own the equity in the building this time around. So I found a building on a main street and I bought the biggest sign that I could find. And it's illuminated. And within my first year in tracking, 50% of my patients came from the sign. And I was like, wow, my sign paid for itself within like 2 months. I was like, amazing advice.
So how big are we talking about the sign?
Oh gosh, I'd have to pull up the specs, but I would say it's probably 4 feet tall by 6 feet long.
And it's like the full practice name or?
Yeah, so it says Groovy Pediatric Dentistry on it. And then below it, I have like a little banner that says Dr. Jackie Wingate, but it's illuminated at night. No one has a sign that looks quite like this. It's a monument sign freestanding with it's illuminated inside of it. So you really see the name and it's so legible.
Can I ask how much did it cost?
Yeah, it was really expensive. It was $14,000.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah. You're kidding. You said go big, but it paid off.
100% it paid off. And I was so worried about that. But so many people within that first year were like, we came here because we saw your sign. Or we were at Nectar, which is like a restaurant next door, and we saw your sign. It was like, oh, we need a pediatric dentist. That's perfect. And I was like, okay, really? This seems so worth it.
That's so cool. Groovy.
Yes.
Why groovy?
So for every kid, like whenever I'd be looking at their teeth, and I was like, your teeth are so groovy. And then we would be like, we'd recommend feeling. And I just found myself saying groovy all the time. And I was like, all right, let's translate that into my next practice.
I like it. I like it a lot. Interesting. Okay. So the sign is something that you'd recommend everybody like, hey, invest in a lot of.
Yes, 100%. It needs to be illuminated. It needs to be legible. And it really, for pediatrics, it needs to hone in like kids. It needs to be fun.
That's true. 1000%. So then from that point on, What's a painful mistake or failure you went through in your practice? Something you wouldn't want to repeat, but you're glad it happened.
This is a hard question. To be honest, I feel like Ruby has been like a very positive experience. I would say like the credentialing piece of a practice is the hardest. Knowing how you're in network with insurances and knowing that they can drop you at any time, and knowing that even if you fought really hard to credential the way you wanted, that in a year it can change has been, I think, the hardest lesson for me. I wouldn't call it a mistake, but I thought, oh, I invested so much time and so much money in getting in these umbrella networks, like everything will be dandy and perfect. And then like quickly I learned that like MetLife had a max allowable fee schedule, despite the fact that I was in the Carrington 20% discount. And I was like, okay, so that didn't work. And then I got dropped by Guardian and I was like, I didn't even know that was possible. Like I had no clue that an insurance company could actually drop you versus you not be participating with them. So I think it would be making sure that everyone understands that the geography of who you're in network with and how you're in network with them is going to be constantly changing and not necessarily by changes that you make.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's always changing, like seasons,
Yes.
right? Gotcha.
Yes.
And then what personal sacrifices or wins have come with building your practice? Like, how do you manage the tug of war between life and work?
I mean, that's what I'm like still always trying to learn. So basically, I'm at the office from 8 to 5 on Mondays, 10 to 6 on Tuesdays, 8 to 5 on Thursdays, and 8 to 1 on Fridays. When I leave the office, I don't touch anything for the office or try not to until my kids are asleep. So I get that like dedicated time for my family. But know that like you're going to have to be putting in hours after they're sleeping is really hard. It is. My first associateship, so my first year out of residency, I think I didn't realize how like amazing and wonderful that job was because I did zero admin work and like just went on and lived my life. And I've learned that if you want the business to run smoothly, you have to put in those hours at night or put on, your weekend day or your admin day and have an associate on your practice. So I'm still trying to find that like happy medium to have like one full admin day so that I can dot all the I's, cross all the T's so that everything can be fluid.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's a process it's a process just to find it. And then once you get it, you try to maintain that routine, right? Kind of a thing. So then let's talk about the moment real quick from you decided to own a startup or partner till right now. If you can go back and talk to that person, the one who decided, yeah, I'm going to do this. I want to do my own thing, right? After associateship, what advice would you give them?
To find your joy and what doesn't bring you joy, to pass it on to somebody else who can do it better. So really like the credentialing piece, I was like, this is so overwhelming to me. I like can't even wrap my head around that. So find somebody that can help you with that. So I used PPO Profit in the early days and like that was amazing. It was such a great help to have somebody with better knowledge for me and trust that if it's not perfect, you can still modify it later on. But I think really find the joys and things that you really love to do those well. And for the pieces that you either don't have the knowledge in, find the expert, or for the pieces where it doesn't bring you joy, find somebody else to do it for you. And it's okay if you pay them a little bit more if your happiness is a priority.
Because yeah, you do want to go in with joy, right? Especially if it's your own baby, like it's your own practice. You don't want to have that feeling of going in your own practice like that.
Exactly. And it really is a baby. Like this takes as much time as a child. So like know when you're going into it that you are going to have to commit to it. And if you want to see it be successful, like it takes a lot of time and hard work, but I wouldn't change my path for anything. I feel like I have so much joy in what I do day to day. And it's so fun to have your own piece of pediatric dentistry that like really shows your joy for the profession to the world. So yeah. I would encourage anybody to do it that wants to do it for sure. Talk to your neighbors when you're doing it. It's so nice to be supportive of everyone and then to find your team that can help support you because it really does take a village and it's just nice to have other experts chime in and to have their help when you need it. And there's really someone out there for everything nowadays too. And you like the Making a Dental Startup was so helpful. The collaborative pediatric dentist, I look at that for a lot of clinical stuff as well as some practice management stuff. Find those people and those mentors to help you because we all want everyone to be successful. I think in this field of dentistry in general, like help your neighbor there's enough patients.
I love that. Awesome. And then the last question I wanted to ask you, Jackie, is what's one question you'd like to leave for the next guest to answer?
How are they going to use AI in their practice moving forward? I feel like there's so many things that can be done with it. And I'm not a huge tech person. Like I use tech when I need to, but I would love to know from like all of those tech savvy people, where will you use AI next? Will it be in like reading radiographs? Will it be in eligibility? Will it be in note transcription? Like what service do they think is most beneficial with AI?
Awesome. All righty. Sounds good. Jackie, thank you so much for being with us. It's been a pleasure. But before we say goodbye, can you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Sure. My email address is drjackie@groovyteeth.com. And my website is groovyteeth.com as well. So they can definitely find me on either of those places.
All righty. So that's all going to be in the show notes below. And Jackie, thank you so much for being with us. It's been a pleasure, and we'll hear from you soon.
Thank you. Have a great night.
That was Dr. Jackie Wingate. And if there's one theme that kept showing up, it's this. A better practice isn't built just by working a lot harder. It's by making fewer decisions that don't deserve your brain. And Jackie outsources claims, she simplifies systems, she protects time. And if you're trying to do the same thing, here's one of the most practical, quiet upgrades you can make this week. Fix your supply ordering so it stops being chaotic. Because supply chaos doesn't just cost money, it costs focus. Last minute ordering, inconsistent pricing, the who bought this, and that low grade stress your team feels when basics run out midweek. So if you want a clean, simple move, make Net32 your default place to order the stuff you constantly need. Go to net32.com/dental marketer. Again, that's net32.com/dental marketer, or you can go in the show notes below and click on the first link in the show notes below, and it will take you to the net32.com website. And here's a fun challenge. Open it, type in 3 items you reorder every month, and compare what you're currently paying. If you find even one, why are you paying that moment? You'll immediately get why this matters. So go to net32.com/dental marketer. Thank you so much for listening to the Dental Marketer Podcast. And if this episode hit home, share it with a practice owner who's trying to build something calmer, cleaner, and more sustainable. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I can't wait to talk to you in the next episode.